Welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cattlemen's Call podcast. Lane Nordland with you here today, and we are going to focus on the Young Cattlemen's Conference 2026 class. This yearly opportunity for the next generation of leaders in the cattle business just wrapped up a 9-day trip across the nation, learning about every aspect of the cattle and beef business. Our guests today are going to be Kevin Birt from the state of Virginia. He's with us right now. And from Iowa, Jeff Landrum. He'll be joining us in just a few moments. He is wrapping up some business there on the home place in Iowa. But again, YCC is a great opportunity for the beef industry's next leaders to spend time immersing themselves into every aspect of the beef supply chain. And Kevin, thanks for joining us here today. How are things going in Virginia so far?
Well, hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my experiences about YCC and, how important it was and, just how beneficial it was. Things in Virginia are great. We're well into the summer. It's a warm one and definitely looking for rain, but, so as is many of the parts of the country. But, but I always like to say that, hey, we're in farming and ranching. So, if it's too hot, we complain. If it's cold, we complain. If it's dry, we complain. And if it's wet, we complain. So there's a common theme going there.
Well, I tell you what, when YCC occurs, I think there was nearly 70 participants in this year's class. I'm sure weather was probably one of the first introductory questions that so many of these attendees that probably have never met each other, coming together for the first time there in Denver, always asking about weather is pretty much how we say hello in agriculture a lot of the time. But Kevin, let's just talk about that just a little bit. What sparked your interest in YCC, and what were some of those highlights? Jumping into the deep end there in Denver and working your way east, pretty much to your home country, not too far away there.
Well, I started off, unlike many people, but like many also, I'm a first generation cattleman. So, I'd always kind of been around it, had a love for it, an interest in it. And when I finally got the opportunity, bought my farm and put in many, many linear thousands of feet of fence and waters and all the good stuff, and went out and got my first 7. And that was 8 years ago. And I'm so proud of that little picture of those 7 calves. That's how I got started. So a lot of this was trial and error. And off farm, I'm in the medical device field and in the orthopedics sector. And so research and studies and the academic side of things is something that I'm very used to. So I dove in wholeheartedly, with just both feet and started researching, reading, and just talking to anybody that I could, and I think a lot of getting into this industry or agriculture in general, everybody is so welcoming and very happy to share information. Some of that information might be because my granddaddy did it that way and granddaddy's granddaddy did it that way, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, everybody's very, very willing to share, especially if you come into it and say, I don't know. I'm asking not because I'm questioning you or why you're doing it, but I truly don't know. And would you help me? I've never had anyone say, you just got to figure it out. So the opportunity to go into YCC, was something I saw at the NCBA conference at CattleCon a couple of years ago. And I started talking to some of the past attendees, and I was like, gosh, what an opportunity to be able to not only network with people from across the country in different aspects of our industry, but really the opportunity to figure out and talk to everybody and see what they're doing. And so, I was involved with the Virginia Cattlemen's Association, and try to be as active as I could in the state organization. We've got a great organization here, run by Brandon Reeves, and talked to him about it because he was a past attendee as well. and he encouraged me to apply for it. So I put all that application process together, and was very happy to be selected.
Well, that's a great introduction with that, Kevin, though, too. But also just seeing that maybe your first experience to YCC several years ago through CattleCon. And obviously, until you get on the trip, there's just so many unknowns about what you're going to experience, who you're going to meet, what you're going to learn. Were there any beliefs that you had before the trip about NCBA or the supply chain that were changed, or you gained a new perspective about the organization and those who raise cattle and beef here in the U.S.?
Oh, very much. It's almost like I didn't know what I didn't know, and by meeting people that are in the feedlot industry as well as cow calf. Some of these guys that are out there in the far west. They're on BLM land with several 100,000 acres, and I mean they're real cowboys. And that was an amazing opportunity to meet these guys and see what they're doing. And, it just really opens your eyes to what goes into farming and ranching in different parts of the country. And then as far as the feedlot industry, historically it's got such a bad reputation. And everybody thinks about cattle standing deep in mud and they're miserable and bad conditions. And the opportunity that we had, not only to work with several producers on the trip from YCC that were in the cattle feeding business, but also we did a field trip up to Five Rivers, and that's one of the nation's largest cattle feeders. And we went to a lot that had 100,000 on feed, and just the sheer size and scope of that operation was mind blowing. They feed 2.2 million pounds of corn a day, and the mountain of feed for their finishing animals is literally a mountain. And it was just so impressive. But what really stood out to me the most was how well those animals are cared for. They're in excellent shape. The pens were just spotless. They've put on so much infrastructure that you can see and not see, like underground drainage and everything, and water filtration and things to care for those animals. And across the industry, whether it's east, west, north, south, you can really. One of my big takeaways was that this industry cares for animals, and they do everything they can to make sure that those animals are cared for as well as they possibly could be, and get them in top shape all the way. They're living their best life all the way to the day that we take them to process them.
Well, again, it's great to get that feedlot cologne on you too when you spend all that time in those feedlots too. But Kevin, stay with us. We do need to just give a tip of the hat to our sponsors. YCC couldn't be done without them. We're going to hear throughout Kevin and I's conversation today from our friends at Farm Credit, John Deere, Merck, and Five Rivers, who Kevin was just mentioning there. But we're just going to pause and just hear why these partners in the cattle business see a value in YCC. We're going to hear from our friends at Merck and Five Rivers. We'll be back with Kevin right after this. Today, we're joined by Mike Thorne with Five Rivers and Paul Kaufman with Merck Animal Health. And gentlemen, Mike, we'll start with you. Well, why does Five Rivers see value in investing in the Young Cattlemen's Conference and the incoming industry leaders?
Yes, it's an honor, and thank you for having me. But it's an honor for Five Rivers to be able to support YCC. I think it's one of the it's a very unique opportunity to bring people together from all over the industry at a fairly early stage in their career. And I think the big points there is it provides a forum for friendships and allegiances that last a lifetime as we work complex issues through this business. And I think it's really a great illustration of just how big this industry is. I think people that get to this conference have a very good understanding of their segment of the industry and some idea about what the rest of the industry is. But I think as you're in this conference, this week-long setting with your peers from all over the industry, you really get the sense of just what a big, magnificent industry and business and opportunities here and the friendships we had. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to be part of that um, teaching and learning opportunity for us.
And Paul, from your perspective with Merck, why is it so important to invest in that next generation of leaders?
Yeah, Lane, Merck Animal Health, we really see that overall value in the Young Cattlemen's Conference for a few reasons. I think, first of all, it really develops that next generation of beef industry leaders, which obviously to keep this great industry going, it gives those young producers that broader experience, that broader view of the industry. They may see a certain part of it in their home, but as they're able to get out and see places like Five Rivers and other operations and that broader piece, really just understand the breadth and expanse of what we have as an industry. It also helps them build some really strong networks, to start to make those connections and those things that are those friendships, as Mike referred to, and those networks are going to last a lifetime. And really, as they support their growth and developing those future advocates and decision makers for our great beef industry. From our perspective, we think investing in a program like the Young Cattlemen's Conference really aligns with our overall commitment as we think about advancing animal health, as we think about supporting producers who are going to make that industry work every day. And for us, when we make an investment in these young leaders, we really think we're investing in the future of the beef industry, and we're just proud to do so.
Now, Paul, I'll stay with you on this next question, but what do you see as challenges for these young producers and how YCC can really help them overcome some of these challenges in today's cattle and beef business?
Well, they're dealing with a lot, aren't they? If you think about it, I mean, there's the consistent things that every rancher, every producer's dealt with forever, things like weather. But I mean, if you think about things like just the rising input costs, if you think about the different things that we just spoke about with diesel challenges, with that increasing land values, labor challenges that we're dealing with, and what that actually means of finding that staff, market swings, and really just the pace of change. There's a lot on their shoulders right now as they're coming into this industry. I think one of the big things that I'm really excited about the Young Cattlemen's Conference to be able to help them with is just keeping up with that pace of change, but also learning to lead through it. That change is going to be constant as they learn those skills and learn from others how they can actually keep up with that change. Be confident the decisions are based both on science as well as their experience and the real world experience. And we think those participants can play a huge role in really what that future of the industry looks like.
Mike, same question. What are some of those challenges you hope an event like this can help them overcome some of these challenges, or maybe gain some of the knowledge to help them overcome them?
I think Paul did an excellent job of outlining it, and I generally agree. I probably put emphasis on some of the things. The rate of technological change, I mean, that's an opportunity and a threat. And having the networks that we talked about in the first question, as you vet those and make sure they're valid and applicable in your operation, is a wonderful thing. Wonderful opportunity here as you can network across the country with people with similar challenges in different environments, and this worked. But those are huge things. I think the next challenge is one that's been ongoing, but is just as we become more urbanized in society and less knowledge about what's going on at the ranch gate or farm gate. I think that's a constant challenge. It's been here, but it's just more and more intense. Social media amplifies it. And I think these producers are ever more going to be challenged with good intentions of society, be it political situations, regulation, whatever. But the challenge is not understanding the implications as society asks for changes that may not be practical or workable in a farm ranch situation. And I think having these networks to help, knowing how to advocate with it in avenues through NCBA and other and state associations, whatever. I think these are huge challenges. The input costs that Paul laid out are incredible today. I mean, we're the benefactor of fantastic beef demand, and it is just blowing my mind what it costs to operate a cattle feeding business today as compared to 20 years ago. So capital management, those things are very real. They've always been real, but they are intense for this group of industry participants.
So, Mike, from your perspective in the feeding end of things, how can organizations like NCBA and state affiliates really help set that next generation of producers up for success to really go against all of these challenges, but yet the opportunities in the business as well?
I think YCC is, an example is a fantastic first step, and it's about building networks first, understanding process. I think one of the things YCC really helps is understand how NCBA is put together, how it works, and how it advances different parts of the industry. I mean, NCBA is a big place with many missions, and I think understanding those missions and how to attach to them and help support is huge. And I think it's basic things. There's a lobbying section at the end of YCC. Going to the Hill and sitting down with representatives, senators. That's a powerful experience, and it's awkward for them the first time if they've never been there. But the next time after that, it's a stepping stone. I think those are very key. Understanding the Washington office and how the Washington office approaches things is hugely important um, to producers as they advocate for this industry.
Paul, same area. How important is it to set these producers up for success?
It's going to be incredibly important, right? I mean, this is the next generation and the next generation to come. I mean, they're going to be the ones that are going to continue to push this beautiful beef industry forward, and as Mike said so well, face the challenges that are out there. I think the NCBA and their state affiliates can really help by providing education for these folks, helping them with the mentorship and those connections that we touched on before, but really also that opportunity to connect with people in the industry. So as Mike mentioned, technology, you may have somebody else that from completely other side of the country that has that experience, and how do you take that knowledge and continue to improve and build upon what you're doing. But they also give them an opportunity to have a voice as we think about policy and we think about those things that are next to come with the industry, and really help them to get set up to lead in the future. We're just pleased to be able to have the opportunity to continue to support this and work with the NCBA and the state affiliates for this great program, and look forward to this next round to come through.
Well, again, we'd like to thank both Paul and Mike for joining us here today, and a big tip of the hat to Merck and Five Rivers Cattle Feeding for their support of the 2026 Young Cattlemen's Conference class. So, Mike and Paul, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
With that, friends, we're going to be back with more on the 2026 Young Cattlemen's Conference. Don't go away. We'll be back here with the Cattlemen's Call right after this. And a big shout out again, thanking Merck and Five Rivers for their continued support. Hey, we're talking with YCC 2026 class alum Kevin Birt from Virginia. Kevin, kind of focusing on you being a first generation producer. What are some of the hurdles, financial or otherwise, that that you have experienced and have worked through, and maybe how have these connections with YCC given you maybe a bigger networking group to help address some of these different issues?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. As a new producer, somebody trying to break into this industry, it is staggeringly difficult from a financial standpoint. Because if you're not inheriting land, or an existing operation and all the equipment, it is, like I said, staggeringly difficult. Nothing is cheap. And, especially where I'm at in the East, pasture land can run upwards of $20,000 an acre. And, I can't imagine many things that would allow you to buy sizable land to have a sizable herd and end up being able to pay that off. So, when, I might be skipping around a little bit, but when we had the opportunity at the end of the week to go to Congress and spend time on Capitol Hill, I emphasized to our congressmen, the senators, and the staffers how important it is to truly back agriculture as a whole, but encourage young people and young producers to get into the industry, and they need help. Because someone that's gone to school, got their degree, and come out, the banks aren't going to loan them millions of dollars, and that's essentially what it's going to take. So, by supporting young producers from government programs, to just help give them a leg up, through FSA. Farm credit is great. They talk to us on Capitol Hill. There's things that are there, but they really have to understand that the financial barriers to being a young producer and trying to grow and have a sizable impact on the industry is tough. One thing that I've done that I was successful in and I'm pumped about is it took me over 4 years to get the approval, but I worked with NRCS, the National Natural Resource Conservation Service, which works hand in hand with USDA. And we determined that it would be very beneficial, from a soil and water health standpoint, to put in a feeding barn. And there's two benefits to that. One is, of course, the environmental side of things, because it's a zero discharge facility, and it'll allow me to take a small property and put cattle under roof, essentially giving them a climate controlled environment so they can have great performance. And yet we can also control and hold all the manure under roof and compost it, and then apply it to the fields at appropriate times. And so, there's a big benefit to that. And then also what that's going to do economically is it's going to allow me to hold 200 head at a time further on through the cattle life cycle. So instead of just having cow calf and then we have to load them onto a truck and send them west out to Kansas or Nebraska, or wherever, that'll allow us to either keep them here or hold them at least longer. And so by holding more animals here longer, we're going to be able to have an economic impact on the area, because I'm buying feed, medicine, etc. So, it really is a good program. And so, in summary to that question, there are barriers, and it's important to emphasize to our elected officials how important and vital it is to really help young producers be able to be the next generation.
And again, it is that next generation of leaders in the industry. And hey, as promised, Jeff Landrum has joined us from Iowa. He was getting some chores done there on the home operation. But Jeff, thanks for joining us. Kevin was just talking about just what it's like, to get advice and hear from other producers and look at that next generation, and know that you're not alone in this business. How are things in Iowa there today for you, Jeff?
Well, we're wet. We're really wet. Too wet, actually. It's actually raining again this morning, which really wasn't forecast to rain. It's just we're so muddy and so wet that the grass is, grass loves moisture, but we need sun and heat out here. We really do. I got lots of friends I met in YCC or have been praying for rain for months and even years. And boy, I sure wish I could give them some of it, but you hate to curse the rain, but we should need some sun now we're here.
We're kind of going through the same thing here. We knocked some grass down here Sunday. There was like maybe a 10% chance of rain on Tuesday, and we got 3/10. And there's now more rain in the forecast. So these weather guys are on my naughty list. They're not going to get a Christmas card from me. But
Right.
Jeff, let's talk a little bit about your operation. I know you're in the cattle business, but you're also in trucking as well. Just share a little bit about your background there in Iowa.
Yeah, so I grew up on a multi-generational cow-calf farm ranch. We've had cows here in Decatur County for probably 100 years in the family. Run about 150 mama cows. We sell calves at the sale barn, and also have a trucking company. I haul livestock, hay and grain, local and regional. Go out to the big yards in Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas and move cows around, and been doing that 20 years on my own, and been trucking for probably 30. So grew up on horseback, moving cows and treating calves on horseback still to this day. So we're trying to do it the old way, but just keep raising them cows. Need more cows.
Yep. And we definitely do. And especially as keep young folks going, we need some cows. And these calf prices are great, but those cow prices, if we're buying in, aren't too great either right now.
Right.
But Jeff, what sparked your attention in YCC, and is this maybe something you've been thinking about or encouraged for folks from folks there in Iowa to attend?
I guess a little bit of both of that. I actually thought I was too old for the program, to be quite honest with you. I got voted in as president-elect of the Iowa Cattlemen Association at our convention in December, and come back around to starting out that 2-year term as president-elect, and was talking to some of the execs, and they're like, "Why don't you apply for that?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm too old." I said, "No, you're not. There's our current president, Craig Moss, one of my good friends, love the guy. He said, just apply, Slim." He said, there was guys older than me when I was there. So I went ahead and did that, and got accepted and got to go through the program. And I'm telling you, what a program it is. It's just getting to meet, especially guys like Kevin, that, such a great guy and great producer guy. He's a man with a plan. That's what I love about Kevin. He's got great ideas, and he's young, and these are the type of producers we need in our industry. And it was just really heartwarming to meet all those people and see the kind of operations that we have all across the 48 states of America. And it was just, what a great program.
Well, Craig and I went on YCC 10 years ago in 2016, and he is correct. There was someone that was well into their 60s from Missouri that went on that trip. So I don't think there's really an age cap on YCC. You just got to keep up with the group. That's what I say. But as we look at it, one thing that we asked Kevin, Jeff, is what were some of the maybe some beliefs you had about NCBA or the entire cattle and beef supply chain that maybe you learned something about that you had a preconceived notion about the organization before you jumped into it?
Well, I've been pretty vocal over the years about, you hear all the things on socials and around about NCBA and how, oh yeah, they're in the Packers' back pocket and all this stuff. And I've heard this for years. And I tell you, when you really get into it and start learning what they're actually doing for the producer on a national level, there's none of that that's true. I mean, I learned so much about the National Cattlemen's Beef Association that I didn't know, of all the things that they're doing uh, to help us through this beef cycle, from a mama cow all the way to a fat steer hanging on the rail, and all the things in between, and all the lobbying, and gosh, the guys and gals at the Washington office, how much work they're doing and putting in for us right here in rural Iowa and rural America, to be honest with you. It's just great eye-opening experience, and what a learning experience it was also.
Well, we're going to continue to talk about the learning experiences, what you all took away from it, but we're going to just pause one more time here and hear from our friends at Farm Credit on why they support YCC and the men and women that participate in it that are truly going to be the leaders of the beef industry, coming up right after this. Well, we were joined by Mike and Paul earlier in today's podcast about the Young Cattlemen's Conference, and joining us is Christy Seifert. She is the president and CEO of the Farm Credit Council, and joining us here today, Farm Credit being a supporter of Young Cattlemen's Conference. And from your perspective, Christy, why does Farm Credit see value in investing in the Young Cattlemen's Conference and incoming cattle and beef industry leaders?
Very simply, it is critically important for the future of agriculture in rural America. When I look at my own family, my own farm family in Georgia, my father is a cattleman and row crop producer, and he's very fortunate to have my younger brother right beside him. And for a number of years, my father has invested time and effort into mentoring my brother and empowering him to make decisions and to learn from those decisions. Just that building up of the next generation, it builds up our communities and the good people who live there.
We know there's challenges in the agriculture sector. So for these young producers, what does Farm Credit do? How are you helping them overcome these challenges that they will face in their professional careers?
Well, at Farm Credit, we understand that access to capital can often be a challenge for young and beginning producers. That's why each of Farm Credit's 55 lending associations has a unique dedicated program to support young, beginning, and small producers. We refer to that as YBS. Each YBS program is tailored to reflect the landscape of agriculture in that individual association's territory and to complement existing programs in the region. If anyone is interested in learning more, it's very easy to visit farmcredit.com to find your local farm credit lender and learn more about the specific YBS programs offered in your area. So, some of the data that just recently came out from the Farm Credit Funding Corporation about our loans, our support of rural America, 91% of farm credit loans were for less than $1 million, which truly underscores our commitment to young, beginning, and small producers. We're also in Farm Credit very proud to support a number of organizations working with the next generation of agriculture like FFA, 4 H, AFA, Manners, Tribal Ag Fellows, others. Farm credit associations all across the country annually contribute millions of dollars in scholarship money as well.
And Christy, how can organizations like NCBA and state affiliates help these young producers find a path to success as well?
Well, getting involved with NCBA and other producer organizations is so helpful in enabling success. Producers make up around 1.5% of the population, but we can punch above our weight when we work together, and that is what happens within these organizations. There's so much value in these organizations, from education to leadership development to advocacy efforts to mentorship opportunities. Whatever it is a producer needs to be successful, it can likely be found through these national and state level trade associations.
Well, again, Christy Seifert with Farm Credit, we would just like to thank you for your continued support of Young Cattlemen's Conference.
Thank you so much.
With that, friends, we'll get back to our conversation about YCC 2026. Again, thank you to our friends at Farm Credit for sponsoring YCC 2026. We have Kevin Birt and Jeff Landrum joining us here today. Kevin in Virginia, Jeff there in Iowa. 9 days. When I went, it was 10. Obviously, they had to just take a day off, to give us a little time to get home, maybe a day earlier. But in all seriousness, it's a commitment to go for 9 days in the late spring. A lot of activities going on the home place. It's hard to take time away from family. Looking back on it now, why would you do this again? Take 9 days away. Do you guys consider this an investment into your future? Jeff, I'll let you go first with that.
Oh, definitely an investment in my future. Getting voted into a leadership role in our state association, it's helped me make connections and to producers and all across the nation, and actually get a better connection with our lobbyists and the people that are working for us in DC and in the Denver office as well. And it's just what a great experience. And I tell you, there were 69 of us, including me, and I think pretty much can say I've got 68 new friends, good friends that I can call on if I need, something in Virginia or something in Hawaii or something in Nevada, Montana. Just keep going to Texas, Florida. The connections that you make and the friends that you make just in those 9 days. You're strangers on the first day and best friends on the last. So what a great experience.
Kevin, what are your thoughts there?
Oh, I echo Jeff's sentiments on that. It was just such an opportunity to invest in myself, and on the greater part, our industry, because, I did really benefit from the conversations, the presentations and everything. And, and to be able to wrap up on Capitol Hill by meeting with our congressmen and senators and their staffers, you see what an important, vital role that we play as part of the NCBA, in helping influence policy. We're not crafting the legislation, but they meaning the staffers and the congressmen and our elected officials truly do sit down, and you have their undivided attention when it comes to issues, because you're educating them, and then they're doing all their research and helping put that policy together. And they're asking questions that they truly don't know the answer to, and they value you spending time on Capitol Hill to help educate. So, it's a great opportunity to invest in yourself, grow your knowledge, develop your network, and also help influence policy later on.
Now, both of you have different enterprises to make a go of it. Kevin, you mentioned that you are in the medical device field. I believe I also read that you were formerly in law enforcement, and
Correct.
then Jeff as well with the cow-calf man, I don't know where that accent just came from. I need a little more coffee here this morning. Cow-calf and the trucking end of things. How is diversification a necessary risk management tool for both of you individually, but for agriculture as a whole in this world where so many of us own cattle, we're a part of family operations, or we're trying to do some things on our own as well, but we have to have other sources of income to get paid minimum wage out in the countryside per se. But Kevin, I'll let you go with that first.
Yeah, thanks. I mentioned that on the very first day when we did introductions. We went all the way around the room, and everybody, gave their background and, where they're from, what they're doing. And it struck me a lot. I mean, really, it made an impact that, overwhelmingly, unless you are working for a company like one of the big cattle feeders or something, almost everybody that's a cow-calf producer is also involved in some sort of off-farm employment or off-ranch employment. And I mean, that's amazing when you've got 1% of the population in this country that is feeding the country, and, in a greater sense, feeding the world. And we're producing better quality than we ever have. And yet we can't afford to do it full time. We don't make enough money in this industry to do it full time. We have to have off-farm or off-ranch employment. And that really struck me, because how many other industries in this nation do people get to just have their one role? And in agriculture, overwhelmingly, the theme is, yeah, we value you, but we don't really want to pay you for what you're doing. So have another job on top of it.
No, I think that's a sentiment we all grapple with, and that's why, again, I talk to pay for my cows, as I always say. But Jeff, kind of the same thing, diversification, risk management, keeping the checkbook a little bit full if you can, and taking care of family. That's what it's all about. But how important is that diversification?
Well, it's really important, and it's unfortunate that it has to be that way. I look clear back to when I was a kid in the 70s, and my granddad, he didn't work off the farm, but he was a row crop operator, and he fed some cattle and had mama cows, and involved in the community, and moving all these years forward, 50 years forward, I don't know if it's I truck for my cow habit or I have cows for my trucking habit, but they work hand in hand, and it's, I would love to just be on the farm and just get up every day and go check cows and treat calves and do those type of things. But unfortunately, the way things are anymore in America, it's just, you just about got to have that off-farm income, because the access to capital is so hard to do, and land is getting so expensive. In our area, back in 2000, actually, you could buy all the grass you wanted for $500 an acre, and today I've got grass all around me for sale, which it's owned by out-of-state investment, $7,000. And yeah, the banks aren't going to loan you the money on the land and the cows. You might get the money for the cows, or you might get the money for the land. But that's the issue I feel like that we're facing as a 55-year-old producer. We talk about access to capital for the young guys. Well, it's just as hard for me at 55 years old with a little bit of equity in a few things that it's just difficult. So, these challenges that we're facing we're all facing them. And without an association that's backing us in DC to try to get some of these programs changed, and, with the CRP and all these things, that we really need these things. And, like I said, I would love to just have cows, but the trucks afford the cows. So that's where I'm at too.
Jokingly say that I farm because I don't like having cash.
It burns a hole in your pocket too much if if it's in there too long. But kind of staying in that same category for both of you. What do you see? You were touching on land and access, but what do you both see as the biggest obstacles for your operation in particular in the next 5 to 10 years? We have a first generation producer, fourth generation producer here on our conversation. Kevin, what are the biggest challenges that we're going to be facing here for yourself 5, 15, 20 years?
Geographically here in the eastern U.S., we have population. The coasts have population. So, I'll just speak on it from being an East Coaster. And, the average farm in Virginia is under 40 acres. The average herd is under 40 head. So we don't have the space, and we have all those people. And, the land, is something that's a precious resource that we're not making any more of. So, you get surrounded by developers and development, and that pressure to grow, and it's like, where are we going to put all these people? So when we have retiring farmers, it is the biggest challenge to us is not being able to have access to purchase the farm next door or all that pasture. If they want to retire, you've got a developer that says, hey, I'm gonna roll in with 20 grand an acre, because they're going to instantly throw houses on it, and they're going to get a return on that of 30 grand an acre. So, and they can do it quick. And that at 20 grand an acre, I need to raise cattle on that acre for a long time to get $20,000 back. I don't know. I'd probably retire by the time I get that money back. So that is a challenge. It really is. What are we going to do, and how do we maximize our space? And that's where we touched earlier on, the importance of a program like NRCS and being able to construct a feeding barn, because I'll be able to do more with less. But the benefit to the government and us on the whole is having something that's also environmentally responsible, and it has a great benefit and a contributing factor to soil health, water quality, etc. So that's probably my biggest thing, is just the space. But number two, of course, is just access to capital, because like we've touched on throughout the program so far, equipment is expensive, and it's not getting any cheaper. So, to be able to go and purchase, that new tractor and invest in it, like all of the manufacturers, whether it's John Deere, New Holland, Case, it doesn't matter. They're bringing great technology and more efficiency into the equipment. And if, there's autonomous tractors, there's so many things, and, it's awesome. But it comes at a price tag. And so again, we have to be profitable on the one side to be able to invest in it on the other.
Jeff, same area. We've talked a lot about that land access there for yourself in Iowa, but what are some of those obstacles that you see in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Well, I guess for me at my age, going to be turning 56 in October, I'd kind of like to think about maybe slowing down at some time, but I can't, because, I have this drive of as a beef producer. I want to expand. I want more cows. I want more land. I want more, but it's access to capital, and it is access to grazing land. It's pretty much the same conversation, whether you're, 23, 24 coming out of college, or, somebody like me that has some equity and some things and can maybe do something. But it's just getting the banks to free up some of that so we can expand. And in my particular area, it's difficult to expand because of the out-of-state investment buying up a lot of the grazing lands for recreation. So, gosh, it's rough. It really is rough trying to decide what to do. Do we just, Kevin touched on that. He's figured out he's going to have to go up instead of out. And we've had that conversations at the family table. Do we need to put up a barn? Do we need to, maybe change our operation, run a few less cows and borrow that $1.5 million to put up a barn or 2 barns and feed cattle or custom calved heifers or, there's lots of opportunities. It's just, boy, I tell you, at 55 years old, thinking about going to the bank and borrowing a couple $1 million is like, wow, you going to be able to pay that out before you're done? Or, so it's a daily, weekly challenge for me anyway, trying to decide what to do, to either just be happy with what I'm doing or just, take a big old bite and move forward and expand that way, because going out here is also a challenge. Like Kevin said, it's population and farm size there. We got lots of big acres in Iowa, especially in southern Iowa, cow acres. But like I said, it's $6,000-7,000 an acre, and it's almost impossible to make that work with a cow.
Yep. And I know on YCC, these are all discussed, and I think that's the great thing when you get nearly 70 people together that are mostly all in production, and you get to hear that you're not in this business alone, but you also might get that little bit of knowledge that can be exchanged that you may be able to implement on your operation, or you have that contact. If you know what, I just met a guy that has a feed yard down there. I need to maybe sell some calves. And I just, again, I encourage anyone that has heard about YCC that has the slightest amount of interest, consider going on the trip, participating, and just being amongst your peers in the business. And just speaking about these relationships that both of you built on YCC, how do you believe this is going to impact your careers?
I've already been using some of my friends that I've met on YCC. Monica out in Colorado, she procures feed for several feed yards. We've already had conversations about transportation, like, feed ingredients out of Iowa out there, working on some of those things and having those conversations. And a couple of my friends from Kansas got a cattle buyer looking for a small yard to maybe stand some cows for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And, I've already been leaning on those friendships that I've made at YCC just in the last couple of weeks. So what an opportunity, and what a great group of people that we've got a Snapchat group, we've got a GroupMe app, and there's conversations going on daily with the people that I've met on YCC. And I love that, the connection, and realizing, like you said, you're not the only one out here. You're not the only one facing challenges. And the challenges in Iowa aren't a whole lot different from the challenges in Nevada or New Mexico. We might not have wolves out here, but we've got CRP and federal land issues just like they do, and drought and too much rain and fire. And it's what a great program.
Well, I could send you some wolves and maybe a grizzly bear here from Montana if you want it. Kevin, same question. How is this going to advance your role in the cattle and beef business?
It was the networking opportunity that was so impactful. And, like Jeff said, I've already been in contact and stayed in contact with people. Like in my industry, off farm in the medical device field, I go to a lot of professional conferences and things. And, and kind of the goal of those is, if you can pull away, 1 or 2 key points, that would be great. Or if you can make a key contact or 2, that's, you'd consider that a success. I've taken away dozens and dozens of key points, and I've developed a network of, over 69 great people. And, hearing the perspectives and being able to bounce ideas off of people, instantly, and having that network is so valuable. And I mean, I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity.
Maybe you could connect with some of these ranchers that do need a joint replacement during CattleCon. Maybe you could do a little crossover. We all have those family members that have been a little hard on their bodies that refuse to go get their hips replaced or knees. So maybe we
Right.
could do a little cross collab, maybe a discount through the medical providers. We don't
I,
need to get.
the funniest thing, we actually laugh because, farmers and ranchers, there's an overarching theme, and that we are very resilient. We work through adverse conditions, through injury, through pain, etc. And we, as ranchers and farmers, are some of the worst patients on the face of the planet because they're non-compliant. It's like, oh, it's killing me. I need help, and then you're like, okay, you're going to have to take it easy. Here's your rehab process. And they're like, rehab? What's that? I got cattle to feed, so you do have to fight through that.
I think all of us have a family member that is a little too stubborn, maybe even to go to town when a heart issue is going on. We've all been there. But so, hey, you guys are a few weeks out from wrapping up the 2026 YCC. I guess what makes you both excited for the future of the business coming off of that? You show up, you don't know a lot of people, and it's kind of that weird feeling like you got to go introduce yourself at the bar or the first kind of little social there, and then you kind of get your group and you meet, and now you have all this knowledge and excitement. But how are you gonna take that excitement and direct it towards bettering your operations? Kevin, I'll go with you first on that question.
Kind of just what I've said all along. The opportunity to have the knowledge base and the connections, and being able to apply that, and in a practical sense, not only to my operation and what I'm doing and becoming more efficient and more effective, but also being able to take that into the industry. The knowledge, the things that are going in different places, and bring them into this area, be able to share it with fellow producers that are part of the Virginia Cattlemen's Association. And then in the greater sense, being able to take all of this knowledge and see what the impact that NCBA is having at the federal and state levels. Like going to Capitol Hill was just an incredible experience. It's something I'd never done before. And, it was very meaningful. At the end of the day, I felt like it was time very well spent. Our message was well received. And that's something I'd be open to doing again, and continuing to advocate on behalf of our industry, not only just for the cattle, but also all of the components of it, whether that's manufacturers or, feed guys. I mean, anything. It's all intertwined, and it's all a vital part of what we're doing.
Jeff, same area. What is? How are you going to take this excitement and look towards the future?
Well, I was going to say that making friends has really never been a problem for me. I'm one of those guys that'll just walk up to you and stick my hand out and shake it and say, "Hey, I'm Jeff from Iowa. What are you doing? What do you got going on?" And the only thing that I would say about YCC that there were some that I didn't get a chance to really sit down and have a long conversation with in those 9 days. But one thing that I did do, listening to everyone in the YCC throughout the 9 days, when I got the opportunity to go talk to the Iowa delegation, I was taking some of those issues that my friends out west and in the east were fighting that, we didn't really have to worry about in Iowa. I'm like, hey, telling my legislators, hey, if there's some issues that come up with wolves or wild horse and burros or, whatever it may be that might not be affecting us here in Iowa, hey, vote for those guys, help those guys out. So that was one thing that I found was really impactful, that they're like, my legislators in Iowa was like, wow, okay, yeah, we can do that. And what a great, I would have never known that or had those issues don't affect us here in Iowa. So, if it's not affecting you, sometimes we get a little lax and we don't really pay attention to that, but it's affecting all the beef producers in the nation. So we need to all be fighting on the same team and getting behind the same group. And man, what I tell you, YCC was what a great eye-opening experience. And the things I learned about NCBA and what they're doing for me at a national level, I just couldn't be more happy. And, I'm so thankful I got the opportunity to go through this program and meet 68 new friends.
Yep. Well, it is a great opportunity. And for those listening to this conversation, if you're interested in attending YCC in the future, a great start is getting in touch with your state organization or breed association, or just search YCC on the NCBA website and learn more about it. And again, it is a very, very great opportunity to expand your opportunities in the cattle and beef business. And before we get played out by our last sponsor segment with John Deere, just any last quick comments from Jeff and Kevin here today?
Well, just I guess thank you to NCBA and thank you to the Iowa Cattlemen's Association for sending me actually, and man, it's just awesome. And and Jerry from Hawaii, I've got a connection in Hawaii I can go to now and go to the Big Island and set a horseback on some of the great horses that she raises and push cows up on the Hawaiian Islands. I mean, wow, what a deal. And my buddy Josh in Florida, we're going to go see Josh in Florida. So all my great friends that I met, I'm coming to see you, and man, what a great opportunity. I'm so happy I got to see everybody.
Well, and Jeff, I thought you were actually in Hawaii today, going to go push cattle with your Hawaiian shirt.
I got a lot of compliments on the shirt. I wore this at YCC one day.
Kevin, I don't know. You might be in Hawaii too right now, but I don't believe so.
Believe it or not, I'm going tomorrow. I travel the U.S. I have national responsibilities with surgeon teaching and training with new and impact products. And so, it takes me far and wide. And, as we were saying our goodbyes to all of our people, all the YCC members, I'm shaking hands and hugs. And I said, don't be surprised if I pick up the phone and, and say, hey, I'll be in your area like tomorrow, because the last October I became a 1,000,000-miler on Delta, and I'm a diamond for life with Hilton. So I travel a bit. And that's the funny thing, just one phone call, from a hospital, and it's like, okay, I've got my agenda. So yeah, I'm going to San Fran, up to Sonoma, and then I'm heading out to Honolulu. So
nice. Well, Jeff,
but
that
seeing
shirt
everybody, sorry, I need to borrow a shirt from Jeff so I can fit in. Seeing everybody out there, like, Jerry in Hawaii, or, like heading down to Texas, gosh, between, Casey or, Zane Heron at the 4.6s, fantastic people, great connections. And, I'm really looking forward to keeping these relationships going. So, one of my closing comments would be to anybody that wants to be involved, and truly help shape, the future of our industry in the cattle business, gosh, take advantage of the YCC program. It was so good. It was absolutely worth setting the time aside, taking vacation time to actually do this. The NCBA is such a wonderful organization. It's so impactful. And this opportunity, if you're afforded the opportunity to do it, is something you definitely should take advantage of.
Well, again, thank you both for joining us on the Cattlemen's Call, and a big thank you to all of our sponsors. We're going to hear from one more, that being John Deere, right here. Again, thanks to both Jeff and Clint for joining us, and now we'll hear from John Deere on the podcast. Well, as we conclude our conversation around Young Cattlemen's Conference 2026, we wanted to highlight one more longtime sponsor of YCC, that being John Deere. And joining us here today is one of the leaders from John Deere, Mr. Justin Rose. And Justin, why does John Deere see value in investing in the Young Cattlemen's Conference and incoming industry leaders each year?
Well, for us at John Deere, there's really three main reasons we want to be a part of the YCC. First is supporting the NCBA's next generation of leaders. That really helps us stay connected to the people that are living these challenges every day and leading the industry forward. Second, it's really an investment in the future of the beef industry. Programs like YCC connect us with up-and-coming producers that are making important buying decisions and helping shape where the industry is going. These aren't hypothetical customers for us. They're real buyers, and those relationships and those conversations matter. And that brings me to my third one, which is it creates an outlet for direct feedback from producers that helps us stay close to their real life needs, their real life challenges, and bring those insights back to the drawing board that help us make the best equipment possible to serve those customers.
So, Justin, what do you see as challenges for these young and up and coming producers, and how is John Deere helping them overcome some of those challenges along with the leadership skills they'll gain on YCC?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges for young producers is that the industry is constantly evolving and the economics behind their operations are changing with it. You hear a lot of conversations today about producing more protein per animal with fewer mouths to feed, and it's got real implications for feed volumes, forage needs, equipment decisions, and overall efficiency. So at Deere, we're trying to be really relatable and practical in how we show up and what we offer our customers. We're a company, obviously, that prides itself on engineering, marketing, product development. But behind all of that are people with lived farming and lived ranching experience. A lot of the folks that help design these solutions still farm and ranch themselves. And that gives producers someone that they can trust and they can rely on for expertise that's grounded in the real world.
And from Deere's perspective, how can organizations like NCBA and their respective state affiliates really help set these next generation of leaders up for success as well?
Yeah, I think the NCBA and state affiliations play a huge role in helping set up young ranchers for success because they create the opportunities to learn, to build relationships, and to get engaged in the issues shaping the future of the industry. For a young rancher, being involved means gaining access to leadership development, educational resources, and really a strong network of peers and mentors that understand the realities of the business. I'd say it also gives them a chance to stay close to policy discussions, market trends, and all those broader challenges and opportunities facing cattle producers. And finally, I would say it helps them find their voice, really bring their own perspective, and become part of those conversations that influence where the industry goes next. Ultimately, that kind of involvement makes a real difference, not just to their own operations, but in their confidence and their ability to become leaders over the long term.
Well, again, Justin, we just like to thank John Deere for their continued support of YCC, and we'll look forward to working with them in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Great to be a part of the team.
And again, with that, friends, thanks for tuning in to learn more about the Young Cattlemen's Conference and the stories of some of the participants of this year's class. If you're interested in participating in YCC, just check out ncba.org and get in contact with your state affiliate or breed association today. And again, a big tip of the hat to all of our sponsors for YCC. That will do it for today's Cattlemen's Call podcast. I'm Lane Nordlund. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to NCBA's Cattlemen's Call podcast with Lane Nordlund. For more information, visit ncba.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast today.